so we're done? Madam Chair, we're live whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Good evening. Welcome, everyone, to the Napa County Board of Supervisors meeting. I'm calling this meeting of June 15th, 2026 to order. May I have roll call, please?
Vice Chair Alessio.
Present.
Supervisor Ramos. Here. Supervisor Gallagher. Here. Supervisor Trell. Here. Chair Manfree.
Here. And if I could, I'd like to have AJ Alarcon lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. So before we begin, I'd like to remind everyone that Spanish interpretation is available for today's meeting. If you're here in the board chambers, you can access live Spanish interpretation on your personal device by scanning the QR code displayed in the room and using headphones. If you're watching from home, you can access Spanish interpretation through the Zoom link or by visiting napacounty.gov/Espanol. Before we begin, I'd like to remind everyone that Spanish interpretation is available for today's meeting.
So good. Look at that.
Okay. I'll read that last sentence from the beginning again. If you are watching from home, you can access Spanish interpretation through the Zoom link or by visiting napacounty.gov/Espanol-BOS, where you will also find today's meeting agenda in Spanish. If you are a Spanish speaker and wish to provide public comment today, Ms. Hernandez is here sitting next to our county clerk to assist with interpretation at the podium. We are pleased to offer this service as part of our ongoing commitment to accessibility and ensuring that more members of our community can participate in the work of the board. Dalila Hernandez will come to the podium and repeat this message in Spanish now. Thank you, Dalila.
Antes de comenzar, quisiera recordarles a todos que hoy tenemos servicios en español. Si se encuentra en la sala de juntas, puede acceder a la interpretación simultánea al español con su dispositivo personal, escaneando el código QR que se encuentra en la sala y utilizando audífonos. Si está viendo esto desde casa, puede acceder a la interpretación en español a través del enlace de Zoom o visitando napacounty.com/español-voz, donde también encontrará la agenda del día. Si usted habla español y desea participar y hacer algún comentario público, hoy estaré disponible para ayudarlos con la interpretación aquí en el podio. Nos complace ofrecer este servicio como parte de nuestro compromiso continuo con la accesibilidad y para garantizar que más miembros de la comunidad puedan tener acceso al trabajo que realiza la Junta Directiva.
Thank you, Ms. Hernandez. I'm going to now move to item 3, public comment for items not on the agenda. If there's anyone here today wishing to speak on items not on our agenda this evening, I welcome you to the podium at this time. Welcome.
So I just want to clarify, the item tomorrow's agenda is not on today's agenda. Thank you.
I can clarify that, and maybe I should. We're opening the public hearing for the presentation on our budget, and we will adjourn to the Board of Supervisors meeting tomorrow, but I think we're not closing the hearing. I think we're continuing it because we're hearing the same thing tomorrow. Do I have that correct?
That's correct. So tonight's the budget hearing, the county budget hearing. Tomorrow, there's a couple administrative items, and tomorrow is also the repeat of tonight's hearing for the county budget and
The individual
all of our
items.
special districts.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well then, I think I'm clear. Michelle Benvenuto, wine growers of Napa County, and we want to flag an item coming before you tomorrow, the adoption of GSA's fiscal year budget that determines the fee structure for groundwater users. The county's strategic initiatives commit to a balanced regulation for the wine and agricultural industries and to transparent, efficient, and data-driven financial management that models public trust and accountability. We ask that those commitments guide tomorrow's discussion. The board is well aware of the financial struggles the wine industry is facing and that the county and the industry are inextricably linked. When we struggle, the county feels it too. We believe that there is an opportunity to structure this fee program without any additional general fund contribution in a way that is more consistent with the data-driven, balanced approach the board has committed to in its strategic plan. The budget being presented was described by your own consultant as a worst-case ceiling, and staff have acknowledged that actual costs typically come in well below that figure. We are not asking that the county's contribution be increased, but we are asking that the existing contribution be applied more equitably in a way that provides meaningful relief to all groundwater users at a time when that relief is genuinely needed. We will be back tomorrow with specific recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the room wishing to comment on items not on the agenda? Not seeing anyone. Anyone on the phone? No? Okay. Then we're going to go ahead and move on to item 4, which is Board of Supervisors reports and announcements. Do any of my colleagues have reports or announcements they would like to make at this time? I see Vice Chair Alessio.
I did not push my button. Don't know how that happened.
Okay. In that case, I'm not seeing anyone, so we can move right along. No doubt we'll have more detailed announcements tomorrow. We're moving on to item 5, public hearings. Item 5A is opening the public hearing to accept testimony on the fiscal year 2026-27 recommended budget and to continue the hearing to June 16th, 2026. So at this time, I am opening the public hearing, and I absolutely welcome a staff presentation from Tracy Schulze, our Auditor Controller, and Mike O'Klyman, our Budget Officer. And I know that staff across the organization have put a lot of work into this, and I can't wait to hear about it. So go ahead when you're ready, please.
Madam Chair, prior to them doing their presentation, I wanted to say just a few words, if you don't mind.
Oh, please.
Yeah. The budget before you, the recommended budget before you, represents an investment in our future, supporting public safety, infrastructure, health, housing, workforce development, and community resilience while maintaining responsible financial stewardship. The budget reflects a balanced approach that protects core services today while preparing our county for future opportunities and challenges. The county is navigating a more challenging fiscal environment. Currently, key discretionary revenue sources, including property, sales, and transient occupancy taxes, are growing more slowly than the rising cost of delivering public services, while inflation, labor costs, infrastructure needs, and general uncertainty, and not so general uncertainty, more specific uncertainty, if you can say that, policy and fiscal surrounding state and federal funding continue to create headwind. The recommended budget responds to those pressures with a disciplined, measured approach that prioritizes long-term stability, preserves strong reserves, and positions our county to remain financially resilient while we continue to meet the needs of our residents. We'll be discussing the budget again tomorrow, as I think was noted, at our regularly scheduled meeting of the board, and then we'll be asking your board to consider approval of a final budget for next fiscal year, next week on June 23. We're also looking forward to having a special budget workshop with your board in early fall, which is something that we're going to be doing new. That's going to coincide with the closeout of our current fiscal year, the books, which generally is accompanied by an adjustment to our year-end fund balances. We'd like to use this workshop as both an early check-in with you on the status of our revenues and expenses, along with updates on any emerging policy or fiscal matters, and as an educational session where we will be reviewing in detail all of our business functions and how they are funded. And lastly, just want to thank your board for the leadership and guidance and support. And I want to thank all of our department heads, most of whom are here in the room, for all of their partnership and support. And I want to thank our budget staff and the CEO's office, led by Michael Kleiman, for all of their hard work. And last but certainly not least, I want to thank our Auditor Controller, Tracy Schulze, and her staff for their continued counsel, support, and hard work assisting our office in developing the budget that is before you tonight. And with all of that, I'm going to turn it over to Michael and Tracy.
Clerk, can we have the PowerPoint going, please? All right. Good evening, members of the board. My name is Michael Kleiman. I'm the Chief Budget Officer for the County Executive Office. I'm joined here by Tracy Schulte, Auditor Controller. We have a lot to cover tonight, so we can. The agenda for tonight is Tracy will first go through the budget book and the state schedules. Then I will go over all funds budget overview. Then we'll review the general fund. We are making some changes to the capital improvement project, so we'll go through that process. Then finally, we'll review each fund type and take any questions after each of the fund. Now I'm going to turn it over to Tracy to first go over the budget book and the state schedules, and this will also include the available fund balance for all funds.
Good evening, Tracy Schulte, Auditor Controller. Great to be here. Just going through this wonderful 600-page book just to make sure that you know what's all in it. In the introductory section, we're hoping that if you have any time to read public and the board, of course, this is kind of like your cheat sheet. This is the total overall picture of very high level, good summary, 20 pages. The next section is fiscal strategy and budget overview. We put the policies up front for you to be able to refer to our fiscal policies, as well as the budgetary policy of control, so the public and you can be aware of how we adjust the budget once it's adopted throughout the year. The next section is budget overview. There's a lot of state schedules with a lot of numbers. I'm going to come back to that section, skipping for it now. Then you have several tabs by the different fund types. So the first one's the general fund with all the general fund divisions, special revenue funds, non-operating special revenue funds, capital project, debt service, internal service, and enterprise funds. As Ms. Kleiman mentioned, we're going to be going through each of those in a section, high-level overview, and open them up for questions. Then after that, we have the special districts and other agencies tab that is in the queue for tomorrow's discussion, so that we are not going to go over today. And then we have a statistical section and a glossary and some common budget terms. So if you would, I'm asking you to go to page 55 in the book, which is the budget overview. It starts the schedules. And for your convenience, so you didn't have to flip back and forth in the book, we gave you an extra copy of this schedule. So this is kind of a big overview of every single division. As your board is aware, you adopt the budget at the division level. And just a quick hint, if it starts with a 1, it's a general fund. Anything else is a different fund outside of the general fund. And you'll see there the first column of numbers is the recommended revenues. Then the second one is the expenses. The third column is the net county costs. So it's the delta between the revenues and expenses. So net county costs is attributed to the general fund divisions. The fourth column is if there's use or addition to fund balance, those are funds that are outside of the general fund. So this kind of shows you in a snapshot of what each of the departments, each of the divisions have in total. A couple little points to make. Sometimes people look at this and say, oh my gosh, we're using available fund balance. We're dipping into our fund balance. A lot of times that's very intentional. You see big numbers in ones that for capital improvement projects because we save the money up and then when the project comes in, we're able to pay for it. And it's really more carryover funds from prior year, and that's pretty much what they're intended to be, is to be used up in your budget process. So that's every single, and it's organized by function, so you'll see the general fund is kind of split throughout the pages because for the state schedules, we order it into functional categories. Then skipping to page 61 starts the infamous state schedules per the County Budget Act, and following the logic of the state, we're going to start with Schedule 3 instead of 1. So 3 actually starts on page 64. And you do not have separate copies of this, but you will have a copy of the one that I think you're going to use more. So on page 64, Schedule 3, the first column is, and this is now by fund, in total fund. The first column is total fund balance as of June 30th, 2026. This is an estimate. This estimate was put together back in April, and it actually started with a 6-month review of where everybody was at in all of their divisions. And so we estimated where we think we're going to end up in a couple weeks from now. And we went back and we did a refining tune of the numbers after 9 months. So we had 9 months actual, so we were able to come up with a little bit better fine-tuned numbers. So that's our estimated total fund balance that we think we're going to end up for in a couple weeks. The next few columns are if we are going to use any obligated fund balances. Obligated means assigned or committed or restricted fund balances that we set aside for a purpose. If we know that purpose is going to be fulfilled, we want to use that. We want to use that obligated fund balance. So that gives us really what our total available fund balance is to start the year. That last column that says fund balance available, June 30th, 2026, flip ahead to page 62 for Schedule 2. That becomes your first column of Schedule 2. Now, these are the ones that you have copies of, because in this one, you can see where we think we're going to start the year. The next sentence, or the next column is decreases to obligated fund balances during the year. So what we're budgeting to decrease of obligated fund balances. Then the additional financing sources is all of your revenues that are coming in, all the revenues that we're projecting to come in through the year, which will be total financing sources. So column 5, total financing sources. Then we have financing uses, which are your expenses, your expenditures. And then if we increase obligated fund balance, the fun part with the state schedules is column 5 has to equal column 8. Your total financing uses have to balance to total financing sources. So that column, increases to obligated fund balance, is really what you plan on having left over. It's the delta of financing sources minus your uses and what's left over. So one way to think about it is your available fund balance for the following year. And then Schedule 1 is a complete summary of all the schedules in the book. So we've given you Schedule 2, and then the next section has the same schedules for the non-operating special revenue funds, Schedule 4, if you want to look into it. That's really more detail about the obligations. So then you'll have a set for the non-operating special revenue funds, you'll have a set for the internal service funds and enterprise funds, and then again, you'll have a set for the special districts. So hopefully those are handy for you to have as a separate copy. Further on in the book, starting on page 83, is the personnel schedules. So you'll see the adds, deletes, the limited terms, and any changes in personnel. And then we go to any capital assets that are being requested in the budget. That starts on page 91. And then the capital improvement projects, the list. And capital improvement projects on Schedule G on page 93. You'll notice there's 2 columns. One says funding, rollover funding, and one is new funding. Capital projects are multi-year. That rollover funding are continued projects into the next year. Again, an estimate at this point in time. The new funding are the new ones in the book that's being requested. So that's the layout of the budget book. It is online and it is balanced, which is a really good thing. So.
Okay, next we're going to go through kind of an overview of the all funds budget. So all fund budget is a countywide total, includes general funds, special revenue funds, capital improvement projects funds, debt service funds, internal services fund, and enterprise funds. When including all funds, it should be noted that transfers within and between funds, as well as the activity of internal service funds, are duplicated for budgetary purposes. I'll explain that a little bit more later in a later slide. Total appropriation for all funds as recommended for fiscal year 26-27 is increasing by 3% as compared to the fiscal year 25-26 adopted budget. Some of the major highlights for countywide is salary and benefits are increasing from approximately $388.4 million to $400.3 million, an increase of $11.9 million, 3.1%, due to cost of living adjustment, merit increases, and benefit increases. Following cost of living assumptions were built in to calculate the salaries. Napa Association of Public Employees will be in its last year, third year of the current MOU, and 3.5% COLA was built into the budget for that bargaining unit. Probation Professional Association is currently in negotiations, so we do not know at this time what the COLA will be, but we built in 3.5% COLA to the budget. Deputy Sheriff's Associations will be in its second year of current MOU, and 3.25% COLA was built into the budget. Also, another major increase countywide is a general liability and property insurance cost. And these are distributed to all county operational departments and are increasing from approximately $12.6 million to $13.8 million, an increase of $1.2 million, which is 9.5%. Some of the things that we did, we really tried hard for next year's budget is rather than just adding percentage to the budget from prior year budgets, we really encouraged the departments to review their actual revenues and expenses and align the budget numbers accordingly. And then as I mentioned before, we're making some changes to the capital improvement projects, so I will go through that more in detail at the later slides. Thank you. Okay, and so this is the number. This is up here is the number of all funds, and I just like to. This is also on page 16 of the book. We're going to go over each fund separately, so I'll go into more detail later on. But this is sort of the high-level summary for each of the funds. So general fund appropriations are decreasing by approximately $2.9 million, mainly due to a decrease of transfer to the other funds. In addition, due to the current economic climate, with cost of goods and services outpacing the growth of discretionary revenues, departments were asked to find additional efficiencies. This reduction is offset by contractual increases in salary and benefits of approximately $10 million, an increase of general liability insurance cost of approximately $2.1 million, and $7 million transferred to the roads fund to complete road repair for the 2025 November storm projects. Next grouping is operating special revenue funds. Appropriations are increasing by approximately $28.6 million, 8.9%, mainly due to salary and benefits and general liability insurance cost. Other increases include Health and Human Services Agency has an increase of $6.3 million, primarily driven by increasing behavioral health treatment cost, expanding services, and the addition of Behavioral Health Treatment Center. The library fund has an increase of $17.6 million due to capital improvement projects at Napa and Yountville libraries. And the roads fund is projecting a $12.9 million increase for capital improvement projects. These increases are partially offset by decreases in the Affordable Housing Fund, not appropriating $7.9 million due to last year's budget, including a one-time transfer for affordable housing project. Next is non-operating special revenue funds appropriations. These are mostly transfer outs, and they are increasing mainly due to the ability to offset eligible expenses, including staffing costs in department budgets. Next fund is Capital Projects Fund. Appropriations are decreasing by approximately $29.1 million. Due to a limited general fund resources available to be transferred to the accumulated capital outlay fund at this time. At this time, staff is not recommending any additional funding from the general fund. However, the budget includes projects using remaining available fund balance in the accumulated capital outlay. Next one is debt service fund. Appropriations include just one outstanding obligation, annual principal and interest payments for the solar panels. Then internal services funds. Appropriations are decreasing mainly due to the other post-employment benefits budget being duplicative in fiscal year 25-26 in error. This is offset by an increase to salary and benefits in fleet, property management, and information technology services, as well as increases in general liability and property insurance costs. Then lastly, enterprise funds, appropriations are increasing by approximately $17.5 million, mainly due to approximately $14 million in airport capital improvement projects, as well as increases in salary and benefits. Okay, so this is where the whole transfer in and out duplicative description is. So as I mentioned before, when including all funds, we noted that transfers within and between funds, as well as the activity of internal services funds, and are duplicated for budgetary purposes. As you can see from this chart, non-operating special revenue funds, which are basically transfer outs, and internal services funds, which are charges to other department funds, fall in that category, and they're in sort of a check over there in the green and the pink. And also there is approximately $50 million transferred to other funds from general fund as well. So when removing all that, the all funds budget appropriation is approximately $679 million when those transfers are removed. Okay. Next, I'm going to turn it over to Tracy.
All right, thank you. On page 19 of your budget book, we start talking about the general fund. And the general fund is the county's primary operating fund and has the discretionary dollars that you have the authority to spend on priorities that you choose. However, as you know, most of our activities are mandated by the state. So some of those things are not your choice. So we estimated the beginning fund balance. Again, this was after going through the 9 months analysis and estimating what we think we're going to have at the end of the year. This is very conservative. We always, I shouldn't say always, but I'm pretty sure we have always ended up coming out better than projected. But of course, we don't know what's going to happen, and we don't know, what might come up at the end of the year. So we're looking at about $26.8 million available fund balance. Our total budgeted revenues that we're recommending come to about $312 million. The use of obligated fund balance, this is a cancellation of fiscal uncertainty of $10 million. We're recommending to use $7 million of that for repair of roads from the 2025 storm, and $3 million of that to fulfill our general reserve policy requirement. The $330,000 extra on there is the use of tobacco settlement fund balance, because the tobacco settlement monies are not coming in as strongly as our contracts are requiring. So total financing sources, $349, $125, $823. We're spending those through the appropriations of $338, and we're increasing to obligated fund balance. That is the amount, the $3,226,066. That's the amount that we need to add to our general reserve in order to fulfill our policy level. Our policy level for the general reserves is actually written on page 20. It's at the bottom of the page in our policy section, and it's 15% of general fund and health and human services agency expenditures, less some transfers. And with this $3 million added to it, we will have $70 million in that general reserve, which really puts us in a strong fiscal position during difficult times, as we have experienced over the several years with earthquakes, fires, and floods, and not had to stop operations because we've had these reserves, as well as economic downturns. So then the remaining available fund balance, remember back to those state schedules, that would be that column that fills in that gap, that hole. So that's what we're saying. We're looking at having $7.5 million remaining as available fund balance after this budget. Any questions on that before I go forward?
Can you give the page, sorry, Chair.
Go ahead, please.
Could you give the page number again for the
19.
19?
19 has the schedule of the available fund balances and how it works.
Chair.
Yes, please, Supervisor Olmos.
Thank you so much. So just focusing on fund balance, and I'm hoping you can shed a little light on, if you are on page 19, our adopted beginning fund balance was, last year was 56 million, and it looks like our estimated is going to come in about 30 less than that. So in terms of the difference of that estimated fund balance, looking at, yes, it's 30 million less, but we're also releasing the 10 million this year. And I believe you said we had an increase of 3.1% in this overall budget versus last year's?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay. And so I'm hoping you can kind of walk us through, as we go through mid-year budget adjustments, we make adjustments, and if we have requests from our departments to make additional allocations of staffing, what is the representative amount of those mid-year budget adjustments, if we were to estimate at this point, which you probably have just Q3, how much of that what's the percentage increase of that we've had? Some years we've used a lot of our fund balance. How did we do this year in terms of percentage-wise, and how does that track to prior years?
I have a slide for that coming up.
Perfect.
So hopefully.
So I'll
that
wait for
will
the
answer
slide.
Your question.
Perfect. Thank you.
I don't know that we have your answer as far as how much the amendments during the year has affected these numbers, because of course budget adjustments are both ways. They're increases and decreases. Many budget amendments are new revenues and new expenditures if grants come in. Others are reallocations. One of the things is capital projects, where we have the money in accumulated capital outlay and we do a capital project, so it's really reallocations. So I don't have the actual what the amendments do. I can probably figure that out though, but not tonight. But to your point, last year the estimated fund balance was supposed to begin, that was an estimated of 56 million, and we were anticipating through this budget process of ending with 10 million at the end of the year. So we budgeted to spend $46 million. That was part of the budgeted plan.
Okay, so I said it last year. And as I look at, and lucky me, I have my Post-its from last year. Our deficit spending in 24-25 was 32.5 million. Our deficit spending in 25-26 per the budget of what was adopted was 34.7 million, but it sounds like we're going to probably come in a little bit better. But as presented, when we look at these, depending on how you want to do it, you look at just the screen and you've got revenues over appropriations, and we are most definitely, if you take your revenues, appropriations, add the 3 million that we're putting away in savings, we're overspending another year. This time it's only 19.3 million. And the difference being, in 2 years prior, we weren't budgeting excess ERAF into the total revenue sources. So that came in after the fact to be able to close out the books. This budget, these revenue sources do include excess ERAF, correct?
Correct.
And what is the estimated amount of revenues of excess ERAF for this year that we're utilizing here?
30 million.
30 million.
So if we were to put this in prior year numbers and comparing apples to apples, then I don't know, whatever fruit you're in the mood for, that would say that we're deficit spending by 49.3 if we were to use our old method of budgeting from 2 years prior. So that is a humongous shift in how this board has transitioned in terms of spending. And I say that because back in the day, in the don't budget excess ERAF days, excess ERAF was utilized to be able to actually go into fund balance, go into accumulated capital outlay, go into pay our pension obligations and put money into the pension trust, and also to be able to utilize it freely for any incoming late labor agreements. We don't have that. And so in years past, when we were looking at fund balances of 30, 40, $50 million, we also had excess ERAF. Now we're looking at a fund balance of $7.5 million, and there's no rainy day fund of excess ERAF coming in to, I don't want to hear myself twice. It's not good news. You don't want to hear it twice. We don't have excess ERAF coming in. And so, I guess the question is here, we're hoping for better, right? We're hoping that the books come in, that we're not spending as much as it appears we may be spending, and we know that that's the difference in time. And we've already asked our departments to make some changes and to increase efficiencies. But my question is, what comes next here in terms of where are we going to feel comfortable from a budgeting standpoint of what the floor is for an available fund balance? Because I'm not even comfortable under $10 million on an available fund balance. I get it. We're putting 3.2 in the obligated fund balance, but you need to have the appropriate votes to be able to release that. And so if we had our mid-year budget adjustments this year, and that's why I am asking that question, how much did we spend mid-year? Because now we only have $7.5 million to be able to spend as needs occur. And I certainly have never been in that position here at the board. And that's just, I'll say that's concerning. I look forward to the slide, which I'm sure we'll get to more of. But I just wanted to highlight that before we move forward.
Chair, can I ask follow-up questions?
Vice Chair Alessio, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Supervisor Ramos. My understanding and past is that excess ERAF usually shows itself in July, and then sometimes will come to a quarterly, the next quarter kind of review and what we could potentially do with that, right? Is that true? We normally see what we actually receive through excess ERAF in July? So it's not that far away. I just want to clarify.
Yeah, no, I believe I come back in August, beginning of August, to give you kind of an update. That's where I might be July, but it might be August. Kind of like a preview update, and that will have the excess ERAF in there, and allows me to close the books and do all the rest of the adjustments, and then we come back in probably early October with final numbers.
Yeah, that's how it worked with the city of Napa, that it would realize itself in July and be like, phew,
Yeah.
right? Good, it's there.
Yeah.
And then but this year what we're doing is that we're working it into the budget with a sense of that we're going to receive it, and so we're doing it now versus in October, as you're saying.
Yeah, that was
Or
a change, I
August.
believe, 2 years ago
Okay.
when we started budgeting it. It would always come in, and we would then transfer it usually to like accumulate capital outlay or something like that.
Okay,
But
so it's a philosophical approach right now. And then the other question, just recapping, you said that the, if you will, surplus from the previous budget is around 24 million. Is that correct? From previous year is looking to be estimated about 24 million?
26.8.
26.8. Okay. I want us to get back because the way you describe it to me feels kind of alarming, and yet I can see it because I see it as I think I see it differently as a philosophical approach in terms of doing it and rolling that in now. I'm also acknowledging that we have surplus funds that we've used in past years that we're using again in this year. in the overall budget. So I just want to kind of level that in the conversation and looking at this budget. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other colleagues wishing to speak at this time? Not seeing anything.
Okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah. You're welcome to continue
Okay.
your presentation. I don't see any other questions right now.
Okay, so what we've done for you tonight is we've given a 10-year, and now we're using actuals. So instead of, it's very difficult budget to budget, as we talked about it, because, even developing this budget, we are using it against the adopted budget at the beginning of last year. And we know that budgets change and things come up and we get new monies, we get, new program expenses. And so this is actuals, and I have one for expenses too, so hold on. So this is actuals, and this is just general fund. So if you look at our four discretionary revenues, if you will, from the bottom up, is property taxes, and then sales tax, transient occupancy taxes, the little green, and then the lighter blue is other taxes, which is basically the excess ERAF and VLF. There's a few other smaller pieces of taxes in there, but pretty minimal. So you can see in 2017-18, really the biggest delta is in that blue. That was a little bit more of an excess ERAF shift that we received. And then it's been pretty gradually equal. I mean, it grows as the values of property tax grows, of course. Over the 10 years, property taxes averages about a little under 6% increase as an average. For this year, the 2026 estimated column is just that. It's an estimate, right? So that's what we think we're going to get, pretty close to what we have. And then the average is just under 6, and for next year, we just budgeted a little above 4% increase in property taxes. Sales tax, the average is about 3% through the 10 years, and we're budgeting pretty flat for this year, coming year. Transient occupancy tax, it's just under 2% average, and again, we're budgeting pretty flat for this year. And then the VLF and excess ERAF, again, we're budgeting those pretty flat for this year. So then really the change is the red or the purplish other revenues. And I'll go through each year to kind of explain where the spikes come and go. But what you're seeing here is that's your discretionary dollars down below, and then the other ones are other revenues that come in. Most of those other revenues, the reason we get them is because of reimbursing direct expenses of what we're providing, and we'll go through that as well. So just kind of giving you a little bit of an idea of where the little spikes are. In 2018, not only the ERAF, but we also sold Water Street property, if you can remember that far back. 2020, the big spike there, we had a $34 million settlement for the 2017 fires that came through. Then we all remember that 2019 COVID hit, really affected us, and we got in 2021 and 22, we had COVID recovery, and we had the home improvement permits went up. People were improving their houses because they were staying in them. But there was also increase in federal and state grants with the $14 million CARES Act. So that's what that was. And we also sold Old Sonoma Road during that time. And then in 2025, we had ARPA and some other additional federal and state, and Mr. Minahan earned us a lot of interest in 2025. So our interest rates went up. So you can see in 23, 24, you can see that those 23 and 24 years are kind of trending pre-COVID with all those things going on. And then 25 was a little bit of a bubble with ARPA, and then we're back on track 26, 27 to be going up at a nice smooth increased rate. So when you look at the revenues for the county, and this is where I was explaining that, we have all this discretionary funds. So that taxes, that big blue, That is including the ERAF and the VLF. So that comes to almost $200 million. Then your next biggest piece is the intergovernmental. They're at 37.5. That is mainly like Prop 172 and state and federal grants for a lot of the sheriff and Office of Emergency Services and natural resource grants, federal and state. So again, direct relation to expenses that are incurred. The next big piece is charges for services. Those include the sheriff contracts with the city and town, elections, property tax administration fee, legal and auditing, accounting services for special districts. So again, we're getting reimbursed for actual expenses. So if we didn't have the expenses, we wouldn't get the revenue as well. Other financing sources, you're going to see that throughout the budget book because that's one of our categories, and it's. I wish we could change the title of it, but it's really what it is. It's mainly transfers in. So when it's a source, it's a transfer in, and these are from non-operating special revenue funds, which again, we have to actually incur the expenses to get that revenue coming in. And it also is a piece, part of that is our indirect cost allocation that we recoup from outside the general fund for services for the general service indirect costs. And then your last piece is the fines and miscellaneous. That includes things like interest, tobacco settlement funds, rent revenues, delinquent tax penalties, and court and parking fines. So this is how your general fund revenues come in, and really the piece of the pie is that blue piece. Everything else we wouldn't get if we didn't have the expenses, basically. So looking at the expenditure side, we categorize things in these four major categories. So we can see that salaries and benefits is our biggest piece of the general fund expenditures, as it should be expected. We are a service, we're a government entity, and we're providing service. So salaries and benefits, labor force is our biggest asset through the county. Approximately $20 million of this is health insurance, which is a cost that keeps rising. The second big piece is services and supplies, $90 million there. This is just general operational costs. This is anything to do from like if we have to rent things, if we have contracts, consultants, program supplies, property and liability insurance is coming out of there. So any general operating costs that we incur to do our services. The next one is other financing uses. Just like other financing sources is transfer in, other financing uses is transfers out. So this is what we have for transfers out from the general fund for things like Health and Human Services Agency, our roads fund, housing and community services. The list for those are on page 120. That's might be a list that you just want to flag because you'll see the transfers from other departments, and you'll see that's where the general fund monies are going. And then the other charges are things like, capital assets, and we have some release of some expected FEMA reserves that we're hoping to release this next year, so that's part of that. So now when you put those two things together, you can see the green line signifies actual expenditures as they came in throughout the year. And again, just like in 2019, you can see COVID hit, so we had some pretty good savings. The expenses went down for obvious reasons. A lot of things were closed. 2021, they went back up, COVID recovery, things happening and programs happening, and then you see a gradual increase starting in 24 and 25 and estimating for 26, and that has to do with our labor negotiations and our health and liability insurance expenses. So you can see that we're estimating kind of going flat for this next year, which is good. Obviously, it might need to trend down, but at least it's not showing that we're going higher. So to Ms. Ramos's question, here's how we ended the year with our fund balance. This is available fund balance. So there's little gaps in between the green and the purples sometime. If the green is higher than the purple, that means we had to fill that gap with our available fund balance. So for example, 2017, we used 5 million. 2018, we pretty much came right on target. 2016, we increased our fund balance by 16 million. Thank you to the settlement, we increased in 2020 the 43 million there, and then we dipped into it at 11, which I would think we would expect since we got the settlement, dipping into it for, I think, repairs and things that we did. Then increase and so forth. So the goal is for and you see 2025, when you were talking about that, we really only used $1 million, even though the budget seemed much worse. And even though the budget for this year is expecting to spend, I think I said 49 million, we're projecting 29 million. And we're hoping that we can even close that gap by the end of the year as numbers come through. And then again, hoping to close the gap for the 19 million for this next year. Any questions?
Are there any questions? Okay. I see Supervisor Ramos.
Thank you. And thank you for walking through this. And I appreciate very much that you've got the actuals on here as opposed to the adopteds, because the adopteds paint almost a worst case scenario because our budgeting tends to be conservative. I wanted to go back to page 20 where you talk about revenues. And if you could walk us through a couple of things. And so the Prop 172 funds, I'm starting at the bottom, the decrease in the 1.8 in Prop 172, that's a decrease from last year?
It's a decrease from the adopted budget.
The adopted budget of last year.
That's correct.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And going forward, that's a stable revenue source?
So we base our sales tax revenues from estimate from the HDO companies. Prop 172 is also based on a half-cent sales tax that specifically goes to public safety departments. So we get an estimate from the HDL companies. So right now we're looking at from last year, it appears to be a decrease because there was a miscalculation that was being made. So what had happened was we received the sales tax for this purposes, but it's supposed to be adjusted down to 92.66%. However, the 100% was budgeted. So at mid-year, we also decreased our estimate based on that. So next year's budget is allocating at 92.66%. So that's where you're seeing the decrease for that.
So really just more administratively a decrease as opposed to an actuals decrease because we weren't receiving ever the 100%. The auditor controller was allocating the additional 7 point.
Right.
I don't do math.
Yeah, the other portion went to the different cities.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Thank you. On the transient occupancy tax, the decrease that's projected in the transit occupancy tax, that is if I'm correct, that's the 12%, not the additional 2% on housing. When you're referring to the TOT, you're only referring to the 12%.
Correct.
Of which we take what percentage do we take to go to community investments?
It's in there.
But we take a 10%. We take 10%.
No, it's not 10%. It's like 1 point.
Yes.
It's 12.5% of the 12%. So it went from Thank you. Why did you do this? It went from 10 and a half to 12.
Yes.
And that 1.5 ends up being like 12.5% of the total. So I'm
That
getting
goes
there.
over to community investments, of
Yes.
which then we give
Right now, I believe it's 80% to
80,
parks.
is it 80, 75%? 75%. Or is it 80, 750,000 to parks?
Oh. It's, I think it's 80% to parks and 20%.
Okay. And as you're looking for that, I'll ask. So in terms of the decreases in revenues on the transient occupancy tax, this was anticipated. And so when we look at this overall decrease on the TOT, and that's not impacting the commitments that we've made over to parks and open space, correct? Because we have a floor of appropriation that we give to parks and open space.
Right, this is net of what we give to parks and open space.
Net of what we give.
Yes.
Okay. The next one of the, you already explained the sales tax. So now let's go to the property tax. And so we have an increase overall. Like when we look at projecting out year over year, we increase 2 to 3%. Is that about right?
Yeah, I think average of 4%.
Okay. So when we're looking, that's why you're taking that, because it is an average of increases?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. But it's projected to decrease this year. So if you could just kind of explain to us why, if we have an upward, and what is influencing that change, given it's our largest source of revenue?
So we visited that issue at mid-year too, but basically I think there was an overestimation of the property tax revenue budgeted, not actual, but budgeted. And so what we did was we actually revised the budget at mid-year for this current year, if you recall, to base it to actuals, because by the time we did the mid-year projection, we actually had the information of tax bills that had gone out. So what we did for next year's budget is we added the 4% not to the budget, but to the actuals. So what ends up happening is, because this year's original, it's comparing the adopted budget to adopted budget, it gives an appearance that it's decreasing. But when you look at the actual compared to what we budgeted, you're seeing an increase. I hope I explained that.
You did, and I think that just actually shows. I appreciate the transparency in that. I think what it really shows is the importance of, and something that is not reflected in here. It's reflected on the slide that's in front of us right now. But as we move forward, it's difficult to compare the recommended to the prior adopted. Because things change. And so we need to have an opportunity where this board, independent of making the actual monetary decisions, that we're able to look and see, how did we do? It's that opportunity for us to say, if this was what we thought the fund balance was, how were our estimations of that fund balance as compared to what was recommended to us? And also, how did we do in terms of what we approved mid-year and what we didn't? You know, how did we hold the line? We've never had an opportunity to be able to do that. And I think what this budget is showing, with these changes and these conservative or over approximations, however you look at it, it's showing the need for us to be able to actually true up the budget and to compare closed book to closed book. We're only comparing pie in the sky with where we think we're going, and we're not, even though I know we do it in the ACFR. I'm still on the old acronym. We do it on the ACFR. I think that's not that is not an easily digestible place for us to see this. So I appreciate that. When we go over to the expended, yes.
I need to clarify something I'm thinking now. So first of all, we would love to bring that back to you at the budget workshop. But on your question, because I was still trying to figure out how much we give to the parks, on your question about the transient occupancy tax, we don't net that. I'm sorry, I don't know why I even said that. That is a gross number. We calculate the amount on a calendar year, and that's part of our transfer out. So our TOT that we receive is listed here as the TOT and the gross number from year to year.
Okay. And if we're in the middle of the presentation still, or somewhere in the presentation, I don't know how much we have left. How much more is there?
Lots.
Lots more. Okay. So, and we will have a further opportunity for board comment. So I just want to try to keep it moving. And we'll, I think, take public comment before we come back to the board later, just for everyone's awareness. But Supervisor Alessio, did you want to?
I was just gonna, and I'll just say this since you called on me. Thank you. Two things. One, I'm on the Napa Valley Tourism Industry District Board for the county, and we just had a presentation today from Visit Napa Valley. And also looking at who's also on the board for Visit California. And the TOT is projected to be flat, so not a negative 5 point something. It was actually a positive 3.1. But when you compare that to inflation, it's kind of a net zero gain or loss. So I just want to say that. So again, we're pretty conservative here. We can always look at that good news later and true up later on mid-year or something. But I just want to note that since that's fresh news. The other will be a question regarding the reassessment of land as vines are getting pulled. I think that's a general public kind of question. How is that going to impact our budget in terms of our property tax? And then also going out to the Napa airport and seeing all those, the assets, the jets and airplanes that are based there, and that's part of the property tax revenue that we receive, how that's going to potentially also hopefully help us with those assets there that are also assessed in the property tax roll. So we can wait on that, and maybe Mr. Tudor, if he's here, he can chime in on that. But I do think the first question is definitely something that's on mind with the general public. The other one is a little bit more curiosity and hope that there might be some good news on that end projected. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Vice Chair Alessio. I'd like to get back to the presentation, but good food for thought, and maybe we'll get some answers as we go here. So.
Okay, so now we're just going to dive into the general fund. So this will be our first section that we're going to go through. And for each section, we're just going to give you highlights of adopted versus adopted. And then show you all the divisions that are in the fund and open for questions.
So I'll quickly go over the general fund highlights. General fund is decreasing by $2.9 million. There's a decrease of transfers to various other funds. As Tracy mentioned before, there was a release of $10 million from fiscal uncertainty, $7 million for the November 2025 storm roads repairs, adding $3 million to support the board's policy level of general reserves. Salary and benefits are increasing by 5.6%, which is around $10 million. General liability property insurance costs are increasing by 28.3%, which is $2.1 million. There is $1 million for appropriations for contingency, which we are doing a little bit differently, and it is specific for vacation payouts. In the past, departments were asked to include their budget's vacation payouts, but we have found that the vacation payouts are unpredictable, and we try to analyze it in many different ways, but we could not find any obvious pattern. So what we have done is budget $1 million in appropriations for contingencies at mid-year. If the departments are able to absorb that vacation payout cost within their already budgeted salary and benefits, then we would be asking them to absorb that cost. But if they have a big vacation payouts that they can absorb, then at mid-year, we will be coming to your board to reallocate the funds. So it'll be a decrease to appropriations for contingency and increasing their department budget for vacation payout purposes. Fire administration is increasing by $7 million for expanded fire mitigation efforts with offsetting revenues from state and federal hazard mitigation grants. Fire administration has approximately $5.8 million of general fund cost. Public defender is adding 3 attorneys, 2 full-time employees and 1 limited-term employee funded by state 2011 realignment funds. Total cost is around $605,000 for the 3 positions. Sheriff is adding 2 deputy sheriffs. They're both funded by the contract with City of American Canyon. The total cost is around $450,000. There is a general plan, $1.2 million appropriated, with $541,000 covered by general plan surcharge. So I'm going to pause here. I already went through the highlights, but these are all the general fund departments on the slide. And if you have any questions, staff from different departments are here to answer any questions regarding these specific general fund budgets. So I will open it up for question.
Okay, thank you.
For new jail project, you can see that we as operational budgets, they usually are at the subdivision level.
Maiko, I'm
Yes.
so sorry to interrupt, Chair. We are frozen on our feeds, so if I could have like a 2-minute recess to figure that out.
Yes, let's take a recess until we have,
2 minutes,
yeah,
okay?
yeah,
Thank you.
go ahead.
I wish that was it.
Thank you, everyone. Now we're going to resume our budget hearing meeting. Maiko, Madam Chair, I'm going to give the floor back to Maiko, if you're okay with that.
Yes, please, Micah, would you like to continue with your presentation?
Sure. So I'm going to continue with the capital improvement project section. As I mentioned before, we're doing the capital improvement project section, project budgeting a little bit differently. At last year's budget hearing, there were discussions on why not all capital improvement projects are budgeted as part of the annual process. Mr. Letter, Director of Public Works, I think explained the challenge of budgeting for the entire project far in advance and the challenge of estimating accurate cost. He gave an example of a roof project where until you open up the roof, you don't know the extent of the damage, and therefore it's difficult to determine the scope in advance. And depending on the scope, cost can fluctuate greatly. Because of this challenge, how we've been doing the budget for large capital improvement projects is bring budget amendments as projects moved along. Typically at the beginning to create the project, then design and award the construction. This allowed us to come to the board with accurate project cost and not tie up unnecessary funds. However, the downside to that is your board saw many budget amendments for approval throughout the year, and it also gave perception of the project is not being planned for. So what we are proposing to do for next year's budget for new capital improvement for the new capital improvement project is for the board to approve budget for CIP 00, which we are calling uncommitted facility improvement projects, Roads 00 for uncommitted roads projects, Roads 01 for 2025 November storm projects, and AIR 00 for uncommitted airport projects. I'm just going to walk through Roads 01 as an example. So Roads 01 is built into the recommended budget in the amount of $7 million for 2025 November winter storms projects. Also included in the budget book is a list of storm projects with not to exceed amount. So I don't have the page number here, but if you go to the roads capital improvement project section, then there is a list of projects that you will find. So as Public Works is ready to move forward with the project, I'm just going to call it Project A. Construction award is approved by the board. Engineering and other costs are estimated for a total project amount not to exceed what was listed in the adopted budget book as a list. A budget amendment is completed to reallocate the budget from Roads 01 to Project A. So we are just reallocating the funds, so therefore the board approval is not necessary. The budget amendment will just be approved by the CEO and the ACO. This process provides the board and the public a clear view of expected projects and anticipated cost, reduces the amount of budget adjustment requiring board approval throughout the year, and reduces time delays for budget approval. However, if any new projects come up during the year or scope and the dollar amount of the project's list is changed, then Public Works will be required to come to the board for approval. I'm happy to take any questions on this section if there is any.
Not seeing any, go ahead.
Okay. All right, so the next section is the operating special revenue funds, starting on page 271 of your book. Operating special revenue funds are funds that account for revenues legally restricted for a specific purpose. These are some significant highlights. Health and Human Services Agency is increasing by approximately $6.3 million, primarily driven by increasing behavioral health treatment costs, expanding services, and the addition of Behavioral Health Treatment Center set to open in fiscal year 26-27. In addition to expansion of the facility, HHSA has very intentional in controlling internal cost in the face of headwinds related to HR1 and increasing administrative burdens that fall to agencies. As you saw on the personnel schedules, HHSA requests only one additional FTE. All others are add deletes. HHSA increased its self-sufficiency division's full-time employee by 5, but only added net 1 FTE to the agency. They accomplished this by repurposing existing FTE across the agency and moving them to its self-sufficiency division, moving positions to where they are most critically needed. We really appreciate and applaud HHSA for their strategic approach in meeting the needs while controlling cost. Library is increasing by approximately $8 million for CIP projects at Napa and Yountville libraries. Each library has corresponding capital improvement divisions that accumulates cash for future improvements. When projects are identified and approved, the funds are transferred from the uncommitted project reserve to the specific project budget. Included in the budget is $10,215,000 transfer out of uncommitted projects funds to Napa Library HVAC replacement projects for $9,915,000 and Yountville Library improvement projects for $300,000. Roads is increasing by approximately $12.9 million due to budgeting $4.85 million more than prior year for capital improvement projects. There is $14,850,000 budgeted in roads 00 for various roads projects listed from 323 to 325, and an additional $7 million budgeted in roads 01 for the construction of 2025 November storm repair projects. Affordable housing is decreasing by $7.9 million due to the one-time transfer for affordable housing project in fiscal year 25-26. Fire protection funding sources are reduced from prior year due to decrease of general fund contribution, but as you can see from the fund balance table, they maintain a strong fund balance. And so these are the departments in operating special revenue funds. If you have any question for any of the departments, staff is here to answer as well.
I'd say just go ahead. Let's get through the presentation so we can, because we're going to revisit all of this tomorrow too.
Okay. All right, so the next is non-operating special revenue funds, starting on page 370 of the book. Non-operating special revenue funds also account for proceeds for specific revenue sources that are legally restricted to expenditures for specific purposes. Funds are collected for specific purposes and distributed to different departments for specific purposes. Do you have any questions on? No? Okay. Just keep on going, right? Okay. All right. So the next one is a capital projects fund. This is specific to Fund 3000. As you saw, other CIPs are included in their individual funds. Some of the highlights are no additional funding from the general fund to the accumulated capital outlay is included in the budget at this time. Accumulated capital outlay has about $6.5 million in available fund balance, which will be used for various projects. About $1 million is going to specific projects, and additional $5.1 million is going to CIP 00, along with the list on page 449 to 450 on the book. Okay. And the next section is the debt services fund. There's only one issuance outstanding, the 2012 Clean Renewable Energy Bonds, which funded the installation of solar panels at multiple county facilities. The bonds mature in June of 2029. The next is Internal Services Fund. It starts on page 498 of the book. Internal Services Funds provide goods and services primarily to internal governmental customers with revenues collected as charges to reimburse for the services being received during the year. Some of the highlights are fleet replacement of roads equipment and vehicle replacement based on the replacement schedule. Employee benefit decrease of $7.7 million due to not needing to budget for OPEB unfunded liability payment. General liability and property insurance increased by 9%, $1.2 million. Okay. Okay. So finally, the last section is enterprise funds, starting on page 524. Enterprise funds provide goods and services primarily to external customers of the general public similar to business, with revenues collected as charges or fees billed for the service being received during the year. Some of the highlights are airport has $14 million for capital improvement projects, and they have addition of one limited term position. Animal shelter has addition of one FTE position. Lake Berryessa concession has general fund contribution increasing to $350,000. that covers all the different sections.
Okay, thank you for that really helpful presentation. I will go to public comment at this time for real. So anyone wishing to comment is welcome to step forward at this time. Okay, great. And yeah, if there's more people, you're welcome to make a queue. And each of you will have 3 minutes to comment. And whoever wants to go first, come on up to the podium. Thank you.
Hello, everyone, board, staff. I'm Adrian Maldonado, the director of the Community Leaders Coalition. And on behalf of our members, I'd like to say thank you for your ongoing commitment for improving access to the county budgeting process and for hosting this evening session and providing Spanish interpretation. It's really important. However, I do want to mention that the Wordly app doesn't really work very well. The audio doesn't work because I think by the speed that everyone is speaking, it cuts off in the app. Also, the transcription, it works and then it switches back to English. So I just want to point that out. We appreciate the ongoing conversations about how we can continue to improve this process, making it more accessible and transparent for the larger community. So thank you again, and we hope to continue to improve this process.
Okay, thank you for bringing that to our attention. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Michelle Groupie. I'm with the Community Leaders Coalition on the steering committee, and just want to continue with some kudos on the process and the book. I've been involved in this process for a number of years, and appreciate the staff and the board's continual commitment to making this a more accessible process. Really appreciate the budget in brief document. I know there was one last year, and it looks like on the website that there will be one once the budget is approved, but we just would recommend perhaps an executive summary of that budget in brief, even for the recommended budget, because as many people have noted, 600 pages is a lot, and there's a lot of different pieces, especially if you're new to the process. Also would like to just ask for additionally clarification on the budget policies that outline how the staff and board determines which reserves funds are used for deficits and which funds are added to when there's surpluses, whether they're unexpected or planned surpluses. And again, thank you, CEO Alsop, for meeting with us in July to talk about a fall workshop. That's one of the things we've been asking for a long time, so appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Good evening, board and staff. Thank you for the opportunity to provide input on the county budget. My name is Jenny Ocone. I'm the executive director for the Up Valley Family Centers and also a member of Napa Valley Together and the Napa Valley Community Leaders Coalition. The county's budget is an expression of its values, and we acknowledge and support the county's commitment to maintaining safety net services for vulnerable community members amid devastating cuts in the federal and state budgets themselves. With that said, we also would like to recommend making a change to the county budget to help address some specific needs with regard to legal representation for low-income immigrant community members who are facing a rapidly changing immigration policy landscape and who have little recourse to defend themselves when interacting with law enforcement and government systems. Because we believe everyone in our community deserves due process, we recommend that the county budget increase the Napa Public Defender's budget with 1 FTE and an allocation of approximately $300,000 a year in order to hire a full-time Padilla attorney to correctly advise non-citizen clients about potential immigration consequences impacting their cases. Because criminal defense lawyers are usually not experts in immigration law, many public defender offices hire or consult with Padilla attorneys in order to ensure that they meet their constitutional duties. An additional attorney would go a long way in helping to support community demand, as there are not enough accessible and affordable legal resources locally On top of offering sound legal guidance to impacted individuals, this resource will have ripple effects that extend into our community. Local families who have a loved one in the criminal justice system would not be faced with the challenge of trying to find and pay for legal services on top of meeting their everyday financial obligations, especially in cases where the impacted individual is a breadwinner. Funding this attorney position will build more equity into our county's legal system and will ensure that impacted non-citizen individuals and their families feel more equipped to understand our legal system, which can be confusing, and make educated decisions for themselves. Importantly, sound legal advice can impact a person's potential for deportation, and we know that deportation can have severe traumatic costs and impacts to children and families living in our community. We urge you to allocate county funds in support of a Padilla attorney as a critical step in preventing unnecessary harm and assuring due process for every resident in Napa County. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, supervisors and county staff. My name is Madeline Powers. I'm a senior staff attorney at the Immigration Institute of the Bay Area, focusing mostly on removal defense for our clients. I'm a part of a partner organization in Napa Valley Together and a member of the CLC as well. And we're here also to urge you to consider funding an immigration attorney within the Napa County Public Defender's Office. Sonoma, Contra Costa, Alameda, San Francisco, and Santa Clara counties have all recognized that immigration consequences are often among the most serious outcomes following a criminal conviction or arrest. These counties have invested in specialized immigration expertise to ensure that non-citizen residents of the counties receive constitutionally effective representation, that they are not disproportionately burdened by collateral consequences following a conviction. Napa County has a diverse immigrant community, as you all know, that significantly contributes to our economy, workforce, and culture. Yet, individuals facing criminal charges here may not have access to the same level of specialized immigration defense available in neighboring counties. And the collateral consequences of criminal convictions are extremely complex and require specialized knowledge that the average criminal defense attorney doesn't have. For example, there may not be a significant difference in impact between a DUI versus wet reckless conviction for somebody pursuing citizenship, but for somebody who has DACA, a DUI can mean permanently losing their status, whereas a wet reckless could be an immigration safe plea. This is just one of many, many examples of the type of very specialized knowledge that a defense attorney needs when they're consulting a non-citizen client. A dedicated immigration attorney would provide expert guidance on immigration consequences, post-conviction relief, and even representation in immigration court, because even though everyone in immigration deportation proceedings has a constitutional right to counsel, there is no court-appointed lawyers for low-income folks in proceedings. Adding an immigration attorney to the public defender's office would increase access to affordable, high-quality representation, which is crucial given that individuals in deportation proceedings have a much better shot at getting immigration relief when they're represented by counsel. A recent report from the American Immigration Council found that non-citizens without legal representation in court were over 2.5 times more likely to be ordered deported than those with counsel. Competent representation is essential, especially now given the increasingly complex, ever-changing anti-immigrant landscape that we're living in. IIBA is the main immigration legal service provider in Napa, but we do not have capacity to serve every person in deportation proceedings here. The Public Defender's Office is best situated to receive this funding, as they are in a unique position where they already have access to a person's criminal records that will be helpful in case of detention. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for keeping the time. Welcome.
Hello, I'm here to speak on the same topic. My name is Debbie Alter-Starr. I'm a medical social worker retired, and I dressed to show the intersectionality of this issue. It's not just Latino immigrants. All of you on the board know that I help Ukrainian immigrants since my son fled Ukraine with a full-scale Russian invasion occurred, and their status is completely changing. People are losing their legal status because of the cruel games that this administration is playing. I'm sorry, I have to say that, manipulating even legal status paperwork that's supposed to just be routinely approved. Anyway, here's my statement. I'm here today to support funding for an immigration attorney within the Napa County Public Defender's Office. This position would provide a critical safety net for current and former public defender clients facing complex immigration issues, including affirmative immigration cases, immigration court proceedings, deportation removal defense, post-conviction relief, and representation during ICE check-ins when individuals are at risk of detention or deportation. Many current and former public defender clients are longtime Napa County residents who have already completed their sentences, rebuilt their lives, and are contributing members of our community. Yet they may still face serious immigration consequences because they lack access to specialized legal representation. This position would help ensure that individuals understand their rights, receive accurate legal advice, and have meaningful access to representation during some of the most consequential legal proceedings they may ever face. It's especially important now because many people are navigating an increasingly complex immigration system without counsel and are vulnerable to misinformation, fraud, and exploitation. Access to a qualified immigration attorney can help prevent unnecessary deportation, keep families together, and ensure that residents receive fair treatment under the law. Other California counties have recognized the importance of investing in immigration legal defense and representation because the consequences extend beyond the individual to their families, employers, and the broader community. I respectfully urge Napa County to support funding for the position and expand justice to current and former public defender clients who otherwise have nowhere to turn. And it is really hard to get those appointments for people with IIBA. IIBA is fantastic. And so we're trying to creatively serve a lot of, for example, Ukrainians all in one session. So we really need to do more because we have a lot of vulnerable members of our community who deserve our support.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hello, board members. My name is Hunter Jones, a resident of Napa County. I unfortunately wasn't able to make it to the June 2nd board meeting, but I watched the recording, in particular the topic of immigration enforcement in the Valley. I'm here to express support for Napa Valley Together's request to fund an immigration attorney. I am unfortunately growing more and more deeply concerned about the expanding presence and brazenness of ICE in communities across our country. As the weeks and months go by, I see more and more resemblance between the behavior of this agency and that of the Special Police Forces of Nazi Germany, which is something, unfortunately, I grew up learning a lot about as someone of Jewish heritage. By now, we've all heard about at least a couple of the deaths that have occurred in street altercations with ICE, but reputable sources are also continuing to report horrible, inhumane treatment of detainees at the for-profit detention centers where they are held across the country. Innocent detainees being held for months, lawyers completely losing the ability to contact or even locate their clients, spoiled food, rapes, deaths. We also need to keep in mind that as someone previously mentioned, the families of these detainees are left behind. And these are our neighbors, these are our students, our workers, our taxpayers, and our prosperity is intertwined. I greatly appreciate the board moving to stop responding to transfer requests for misdemeanor wobblers, but especially given the decision to continue cooperating with ICE transfers for some non-convicted cases and to continue withholding conviction status in public reports. And given the extreme moment we find ourselves in 2026, investing in public defense of our immigrant community is the obvious right decision. As efforts to open new detention centers in Northern California ramp up, now is the time to act. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Welcome.
Dear Honorable Board and County staff, thank you so much for being here and having this time for public comment. My name is Nancy Nord Kanegi, a retired school teacher from Napa Valley Language Academy. So I'm here to also advocate for the immigration attorney, as my life teaching dual immersion English, Spanish. I've had the opportunity to be with so many people, also being a vineyard manager, having different ethnicities to work with. It's been a blessing to me. And I am a person of white privilege, having housing advantage, having tax advantages. I want to make sure that there's an equitable line for all people and that people can experience due process. I've done legal observer training, and that really taught me that our constitutional rights, it protects everyone when everyone gets due process. So I would support the immigration attorney. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome when you're ready. Esbady? Would you like translation services? Go ahead.
Buenas tardes a todos. Mi nombre es Esbady Piña. Estoy agradecida por la oportunidad de que haya interpretación en español. Agradezco a las supervisoras.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to express my gratitude because translation services are available, and especially to all the supervisors.
También el cambio de este horario creo que es muy flexible para que la comunidad se acerque un poco más a este tipo de reuniones y sepan hablar sobre presupuestos, sobre cambios, sobre políticas que incluyen al condado de Napa, porque todos somos contribuyentes sin importar el estatus migratorio.
I also would like to thank that the meeting is taking place at this time of the day. This is an excellent opportunity for everybody in the community to come and hear and learn about budget, laws, different changes in the budget, and different opportunities to participate, because we all support the community in different ways.
Como mi trabajo también conlleva el trabajar con trabajadores agrícolas y llevar educación sobre sus derechos laborales, abuso, acoso, asalto sexual, pesticidas, pienso que esta es una oportunidad para que también ellos se acerquen con ustedes y conozcan de viva voz cuáles son las necesidades que ellos tienen, y más con todos estos cambios políticos en inmigración, que muchas veces se sienten acosados y se sienten inseguros de hablar por miedo a represalias.
The job that I do takes place with disadvantaged communities, communities that suffer discrimination, sexual abuse, and I think having this meeting, it's a great opportunity for them to feel close to the people in power and for them to share their opinion and their experiences and learn about new ways on how they can participate.
Y es importante que ellos sepan que ustedes pueden tomar buenas decisiones en los presupuestos para que así aporten más ingresos a organizaciones y agencias que lo necesitan, para que los apoyen y los ayuden, por ejemplo, con abogados, con cuidado de niños, con diferentes recursos que ellos necesitan para seguir trabajando y ser aquella mano que apoya a la comunidad y que hace fuerte a Napa por medio del trabajo.
I think it's really important for them, for the disadvantaged communities, to come and participate and share with you all the necessities that they need to be fulfilled, especially because they do work, and it's important for them to also learn that they can come and share their ideas, share their needs. That way, all of the necessities that they have can be fulfilled.
Gracias.
Okay, thank you so much. Welcome.
Good evening, Chair Manfrey and members of the board. I'm Kara Werner with the Napa County Bicycle Coalition. Thank you for the opportunity to provide input tonight. We know you have a lot to consider, and we appreciate that we can take a moment to focus on the safety of people who bike on our county roads. We are back again this year with the same request we made in 2024 and in 2025 budget hearings. Public Works performance measures still track only streets resurfaced and potholes filled. That's in the road section. We'd like added to that miles of bike lanes installed or upgraded. Last year, Supervisor Gallagher said, I quote, "I really think it's important that we have performance measures regarding the improvements of enhancements to bike lanes, bike safety, bike facilities. I do think it's important to call those out. I think in the goals and performance measures, this is really important to capture. So I would like to see us do that for the final draft of last year's budget." Both Board Chair Manfrey and Supervisor Cottrell agreed, and we thank them for that. As the saying goes, what gets measured gets managed. Things that are tracked, like pavement quality with its PCI index, get attention. Things that aren't tracked are more easily overlooked. We ask again that staff include miles of bike lanes installed or upgraded as a performance measure. Even if NVTA tracks it elsewhere, including it in the county budget, makes it more visible and better conveys who all the county roads serve. Plus, the county is making progress on bike lanes. It has made some really great progress over this past year especially, and including this measure would help bring recognition to that. We also have a new request this year. The Public Works budget narrative gives the impression that guardrails are a top priority. While guardrails are certainly needed, they are something of a last resort. They reduce how badly people are hurt in a crash, but they don't prevent crashes or help people on bikes. The Federal Highway Administration has developed an initiative called Focus on Reducing Rural Roadway Departures, the most frequent type of crash on our county roads. It prioritizes tools like rumble strips and delineators and keeps vehicles on the roadways, preventing them from departing, which is the top strategy, prevention of departing to begin with. Its third and final strategy is where the guardrails appear, which is to minimize crash severity. We'd love to see a budget that puts prevention first by prioritizing proven countermeasures like rumble strips and delineators, which protect bicyclists and drivers both. Preventing roadway departure crashes benefits everyone, and given the high cost of emergency response, it can help mitigate rising costs as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. I'm not seeing anyone else in the room. Is there anyone on the phones? No? Okay. Well, I'd like to just say thank you to everyone who came out this evening. This is a really impressive attendance from the community. It's a good indication that having this time slot helps and works. I see the twinkling. And I also acknowledge that many of you, maybe all of you, are showing up after work or after a long day of whatever it was you were up to. And I really appreciate you putting in the effort to be here with us tonight. So thank you. Okay, so with that, I will bring this back to the board for any discussion we wish to have tonight, while noting that we will be reviewing all of the same information again tomorrow, and we'll also have an opportunity to discuss things then. But if there's any follow-up questions for staff, now's a great time. Go ahead, Supervisor Alessio.
It's just a question I kind of proposed earlier to Mr. Tudor, if he wants to give. I don't know if you have what kind of information you might have on hand regarding any reassessed land values that's going to make a difference in property tax and the fixed wings or jets that are part of the property roll also at the airport.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. John Tudor in my assessor hat tonight. First of all, you're all aware, as has been mentioned tonight by Ms. Benvenuto, that there are headwinds in both the hospitality, the vineyard, and the winery industry. We've seen prices of developed vineyard land drop by a major amount in the last 3 years. We are looking at that right now. We close the roll on June 30th, and I can tell you right now there will be a substantial review and decline in value in those properties that have purchased or planted or developed wineries since 2021. I can't tell you the extent, but I will be back in July to give you a full report on what that is. Now remember that the vineyard, winery, and hospitality industry is only about 9% of our assessment roll, or 10%. Most of our roll, like most counties in California, is residential. There are a lot more houses. They may not be as valuable as a large winery, but there are more of them. So the impact is going to be there, but it's not going to be substantial. And as I've said with Tracy Schultze and Bob Minahan, we're expecting, as they've said this evening to you, a flat or a small increase in the assessment roll. Not in the assessment roll, but in property tax. That's a slightly different thing. But we will grow, but I don't know how much, and I made that clear both to the board and to them. As far as the aircraft are concerned, Supervisor Alessio, having two fixed base operators, I understand from Mr. Lederer in the news, they're both open and operating. That may bring more large aircraft to the county, large general aviation aircraft. We are not in the commercial sector, but a jet can be $50 or $60 million. and that can add a lot of money to the unsecured assessment roll. I can't project how much of an impact having two FBOs will have. And of course, we have headwinds there, if you'll pardon the expression, in the aviation industry. We have fuel costs going up. We have costs of many things going up. So there could be a leveling off of growth at the airport given those kinds of economic factors. But you can be sure that we will capture whatever is there in the aircraft sector as they increase.
A quick math question. If an aircraft is valued at $50 million, to kind of keep it simple, what would that property tax be? What would that be that came back to the county? I'm just curious.
Well, it would be $500,000, but you only get 17% of that.
So 17% of the 10%.
17% of $500,000.
Yeah, okay,
right.
17%.
Yeah, so about $9,000, $90,000, something
Okay,
like that.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Any other follow-up questions right now? Or staff in the room, or I think, yeah, go. Okay, we're saving questions for tomorrow. Very good. Then I would just like to note that there was a Post-it somewhere. That staff has put a lot of effort into this, and that, I think it's a very interesting conversation that we were having earlier about how to track and compare things across years when our methods are changing. That's always a challenge, and so the more that we can find ways to effectively do that and to look at year-over-year changes in a way that's meaningful to better structuring our budget and finding the cost savings where we can, I think that's going to continue to be very important given everything we know about the state of the economy. So thank you all for your diligent work on this. I feel like this is one of the biggest team projects that the entire county does every single year, maybe the biggest one. So, and thank you, CEO Alsop, for your leadership, getting us all through it, and for the Auditor Controller's Office and all the work you put in. I mean, I feel like I maybe shouldn't be naming names because I know everyone works on this, but the level of camaraderie and teamwork this year has been really nice to see. So thank you all. Okay. Let's see. In that case, I'm going to look for a motion to continue the public hearing to June 16th, 2026 at 9 a.m.
So moved.
Okay, motion by Vice Chair Alessio. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Supervisor Cottrell. All those in favor?
Aye.
That passes unanimously. We will continue this tomorrow. Thank you all so much for being here. We're adjourning specifically to the next Board of Supervisors meeting on Tuesday, June 16th, 2026 at 9 a.m.